is mental health. It's extreme importance on the Cane Corso. A correct Cane Corso temperament should be first and foremost confident. It should have confidence. It should never be shy or skittish or fearful of anything. Okay. Unfortunately, we do have some shyness, some fearful Corsos, and this is not good. The Cane Corso should never be fearful of anything. Should be very confident. The temperament, like everything else, is genetic first and foremost. The socialization that you do with a puppy or a dog is important. It helps to shape the temperament, to mold the temperament. But you cannot change a bad temperament. The temperament is inherited. It is genetic first and foremost. So the first thing you want to see in a Cane Corso puppy all the way through adult is confidence. Should be a very confident dog. You asked about family. So the Cane Corso is a great family dog. It bonds with the family, whatever that family might consist of, whether it's one person or two people or a family with children, small children, babies, it doesn't matter. The Cane Corso, correct Cane Corso, will be a great family dog, naturally protective of its family, naturally protective of its children, but will never hurt someone for no reason. If someone comes near your children, they might be guarding. They might, obviously want to feel the situation out and act accordingly. That's the important thing, that they can tell the difference between a threat and someone that's not a threat. So the Cane Corso temperament is extreme importance, as important as anything else. And it is genetic first and foremost. And the biggest trait that you want to see in a correct temperament for the Cane Corso is a confident dog.
Thank you very much. My second question here is how biddable are the Cane Corsos?
I'm sorry, ask it again, please.
How biddable, how trainable?
How trainable? Extremely trainable, extremely intelligent. Of course, the heritage of the breed in Southern Italy is a versatile working farm dog. So they had many tasks to perform, in their ancient times, in their origins. They could perform whatever tasks were needed by the rural Italian farmers, whether it was herding, whether it was hunting, whether it was accompanying to the carts, simply protecting the herd from wolves or what have you. So they're easily trained, highly intelligent. Today, we have Cane Corsos that have been trained and excel at anything a dog can do. Lure coursing, Schutzen, protection work, dock diving, agility. I can go on, but there is nothing literally that the Cane Corso cannot do, has not done, cannot do well, and can be trained to do. So they're very intelligent, very trainable breed.
Okay, we have a hand up from Lebeni. Let me unmute so I can ask a question.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Lebeni Ajoyi. I'm the president of Cane Corso Club of Ghana. I raised my hand initially because I wanted to draw Rose attention to the questions Jim wanted to ask, but as you've already started reading the questions, that's fine. We'll answer our questions after you've read all the questions to Jimmy to answer. So sorry, I have to take my hand down and wait till the questions and answers, then I'll come in again.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. I also asked Mr. Kunle to make a co-host so that you can also moderate. Okay, so I go to question 3. Exercise requirements.
So the Cane Corso is a working breed, should be maintained as a working breed, and therefore it does need daily exercise, free run of property, uh, to run and exercise freely. Any additional exercise is beneficial, whether it's simply chasing a ball or what have you. But again, the Cane Corso is easily trainable. They're a true working breed. They enjoy spending time doing whatever it might be, even if it's just chasing a ball, like I said, with their owners. So they do need daily exercise, not extensive, not extensive, but they do need daily exercise in order to be healthy and happy.
Okay. Yeah, so someone asked in another chat. It's a follow-up question to the temperament question. How does the temperament differ from other protection dogs, like the Doberman?
So the Doberman was bred with a specific purpose, where the Cane Corso was more versatile. It was not bred to simply be a guard or protection dog. So therefore, the Cane Corso's instincts of guarding and protection are as strong as any breed, but they have a little bit more versatility into the things that they can do, versus, say, a breed that was bred strictly for guarding. But there should be also similarities in the Doberman or the Rottweiler and the Cane Corso in those aspects. For instance, right now, the AKC breed standard does not have verbiage pertaining to shyness in the standard. I wish it did. The Rottweiler AKC breed standard and the Doberman AKC breed standard both have provisions in that standard to where if the dog appears to be shy, it should be excused from the ring. So I would like to see something of that nature also for the Cane Corso, because it should be thought of in the same aspects as a Doberman or Rottweiler as far as being shy or fearful. It should never be acceptable.
Okay,
Hello.
thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, how suitable is Cane Corso as a family pet, and how do they get along with other pets?
So the Cane Corso, as far as a family pet, is quite suitable to be a family pet. Let's face it, very few of the dogs actually work anymore. The majority of Cane Corsos are strictly family pets. As far as getting along with other family pets or other animals, again, the heritage of the breed is a rural working farm dog. So if the Cane Corso is raised with other animals, whatever they might be, other dogs, cats even, livestock, horses, cattle, sheep, what have you, even chickens. I know Cane Corsos that have no problem being around chickens. So if they are raised as a puppy with that, they do quite well. It's in the heritage of the breed as being a rural working farm dog.
Thank you. The guardian instincts. Do Cane Corso makes a good guard dogs? how strong are their how strong are their protective instincts?
So again, a correct Cane Corso, and that's always, when we talk temperament, that's always the key, is we talk about it. And when I talk about it, I'm talking about correct, not incorrect temperament. So a correct temperament on a Cane Corso, the protection or guard instincts are extremely strong. If someone was to try to harm you or your family, or come on your property when no one is there and they don't belong there, then you will see the Cane Corso at its most fearsome, to protect its property, its owners, its family, uh, what have you. And again, as a rural working farm dog, other animals, whether it's the stock, whatever it might be, that you might have on your property, they will protect them also. So a correct Corso's temperament is very strong for protection and guarding.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is about socialization. The person is asking, what's the importance of socializing a Cane Corso? Are they prone to aggression if not properly socialized?
So again, the temperament is genetic first and foremost. And socialization is extremely important. It should absolutely be done to help shape that temperament around that dog, to be the best example of the breed possible. So at a very early age, puppies should be taken out into public, into as many different situations and atmospheres as possible, noises, crowds, what have you. They should be allowed to interact with other people. A confident dog that interacts with other people will be a great protection dog, because it can tell the difference between someone that's normal and someone that's not normal, someone that's not a threat and someone that is a threat. So it's very important to socialize your Cane Corso as much as possible, from early puppyhood all the way through adult life. It will help to make that dog as strong of a correct example of the breed as possible.
Okay, someone is actually raising his hand, so I want to unmute him so that he can ask his question. I'm trying to unmute him. Okay, you can ask your question.
Yes. Okay, yes, my name is Uwem. I just have a question about size and health. At what size would be sort of ideal to avoid health issues? Because I've seen a variety of sizes with the Corso, and I don't know, where it's maybe too big and, we run into issues. What's generally a good size?
So of course we have a breed standard, and the breed standard, actually the Italian breed standard and the AKC breed standard are pretty much the same as far as size. And size, when we talk about size in a dog, we don't talk about weight. Okay, weight is considered substance or bone or mass. Size is the height of the dog. So the breed standards say that a Cane Corso female should be 23.5 inches to 26 inches tall at the withers, and that a male Cane Corso should be 25 to 27.5 inches tall at the withers. Now, the Italian standard has always said 100 pounds for a female and 110 pounds for a male. Although we all know that the Cane Corsos typically weigh more than that, some considerably more than that. The AKC breed standard has never had any numerical reference for weight. It simply says weight should be proportionate to height. So to answer your question, as far as health, as a rule of thumb for all dogs, all breeds, the larger the dog, probably the shorter the life. Okay. A typical Cane Corso will live between 10 and 12 years old. And I think that's pretty much covers the weights that we see. Okay. Myself personally, I've had males that are 110 pounds, a little bit on the smaller size. And I've had males as big as 160, 170 pounds. Okay. There was nothing drastic as far as health between them. All right. So the breed should not be extremely heavy or with lots of substance, like say an English Mastiff or a Neapolitan Mastiff. That would be way too much. It would no longer be functional and able to carry out the work that it was intended to do. By the same token, it shouldn't be fine-boned, say like a Boxer or a Doberman either. Okay. Also, it should not be extremely tall, like a Great Dane or an Irish Wolfhound. So we have a breed standard, and the breed standard is a good depiction of what the breed should be. Although we do have a lot of variance within that. I actually have had the privilege of seeing an old Italian breed book, wrote in the 1940s. It was written by Piero Scanziani, who discovered the Neapolitan Mastiff, helped get it recognized in Italy. And he, back then, the Cane Corsos, the Neapolitan Mastiffs, the Cane Depresses were all basically the same type of dogs, same style of dogs before they went on into different directions. But in any event, the point I'm making is in that book in the 1940s where he wrote a description.
Hello, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So I think there's always been a variance of weight in the breed, and there will continue to be a variance of weight. I think if you have, you should never have a 180, 200-pound Cane Corso. You should never have a Cane Corso that's above the standard on what it has for the numerical references. You should never have a really small Cane Corso either. So, but as far as the health, I think the weight ranges that we're seeing now, the size ranges, 10 to 12 years is pretty, it's pretty accurate.
I'm trying to unmute. Hold on, please. We are trying to. It's like we still have Mr. Umar and he still raises his hands. I'm trying to unmute him so that we can continue with his question.
Okay, whilst we wait for our co-host to unmute a participant, Mr. Jimmy, I'd like to ask this question is, I think my fellow breeders always ask this: what's the best time to spot a puppy out from a litter? At what age do you think you can make a right call in selecting a puppy out of your litter for your breeding program? Thank you.
So the Cane Corso, as we know, the genetics are very diverse. So one of the keys to selecting a puppy from a litter is line knowledge, knowing how those bloodlines develop. Okay. That said, selecting a puppy is still going to be an educated guess. Obviously, when you look at the puppy, and of course, we start looking at them as soon as they start looking like something, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks. A lot of breeders start placing their puppies at 8, 9 weeks old. So for a lot of people, 8 or 9 weeks will be the last or the oldest a puppy will be before you make your final decisions. But there's still a lot of developing going on. So you're going to make your most educated guess. So when I select a puppy, what I look at first and foremost is type. I want to see that it has correct Cane Corso type. And the features will be there, but they will not be as evident as, of course, when it becomes older. And things can always change and not turn out as you think. But the first thing that you want to do is be sure that it has correct Corso type. So the specific things, of course, would be a proportionally large head. The head should always be large in comparison to the body. So I look at a puppy, the first thing that I want to see is a proportionally large head. If I have a proportionally large head and I want to look at the muzzle to skull ratio, be sure it's around that 1/3 length. Be sure that the muzzle's not too long, be sure that the muzzle's not too short. From there, I want to see a pronounced stop. I want to see the nice pronounced stop on that puppy, nothing that goes from the muzzle towards the eye socket and starts to slope or what have you. I want to see a pronounced stop. The convergence is probably one of the hardest things to see on a little puppy or a baby puppy. So the best thing that you can do is look for it, but you're probably not going to really be able to see a whole lot on a puppy. The most important thing to do is to see that the head or the skull, top of the skull, is relatively flat. It doesn't have a lot of curvature. Okay. Now, if you don't have those things, if you have a long muzzle, a short muzzle, a head that's small, you don't have a good stop, you don't have a wide skull, you don't have a wide, broad muzzle, then you don't have correct type, and there's probably no way that puppy's going to turn out to have correct type. Okay. Another thing that you can do that's important to do is to look at the dentition, to look at the teeth on that puppy. So most Cane Corsos will start out, or Corsos are going to be correct as an adult, will start out with a scissor bite. And as they grow, depending again on the lines, sometimes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes they take as much as 8 months, the scissor bite will change to the slight undershot bite. Okay. So what you don't want to see in a Corso puppy that's still 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks old is a puppy that's already undershot. If it's already undershot, then the chances are it's going to be extremely undershot and incorrect as an adult. Of course, the flip side of that is you don't want to see a Corso puppy that has any overbite. That's not going to turn out good either. So you want to see a really tight scissor bite as a puppy. Another thing that you can do when you look at the dentition is to look at the incisors, which are the teeth in between the canines. Okay. They should be in as straight of a line as possible between the canines. If you have a nice straight line on the upper and lower incisors, then you have it, and then so that's a good indicator that you can have a correct muzzle configuration as an adult. If you look into the dentition and you see that in between the canine teeth, the middle teeth, the incisors are rounding, okay, maybe like a Labrador or something of that nature. If those teeth are rounding, especially in the upper, the chances are you're going to have an incorrect muzzle configuration as an adult. So those are some keys to look at as far as type. The other type aspect, of course, is that the Cane Corsos are rectangular breed. The length of body should be longer than the height. It shouldn't be square. Dobermans, Boxers, those are square breeds. The German Shepherd is an extremely rectangular breed. The Cane Corso is a rectangular breed. So the length of body on a Cane Corso should be a little bit more than the height of the withers. So that's another type aspect to look at. So when you have those things, then you can start looking at the structure. You want to look and see if you have a good back line, nice straight, strong back line, some good front prosternum and some good front shoulder angulation. Same thing with the rear. You want to see if you got a good strong rear. All the feet should be straight. Feet should be tight. Shouldn't be loose. So you can pretty much see all the things that I just discussed in that 7, 8, 9, 10 week period. You know, if you have all that, then great, but you still just have a prospect. You're not going to know until that dog gets older, at least 8, 9 months, if all that, as we say, holds together, that all that stays together. Okay, hopefully it does, and you made a good selection. Sometimes you can have all that in a puppy, but things still go amiss. They still don't turn out like you had expected. But if you don't have all that, you don't have everything that we just discussed, chances are the puppy's not going to turn out to be a good breed show prospect for you. So, of course, the longer you can hold on to a puppy, then the better you're going to know how the puppy's going to turn out, right? But that's not always possible. So I hope those things help you some.
Okay, thank you. And as a judge that have been in the ring with Kennel Corso for a very long time, what are the things that you look out for when it comes to show in Kennel Corso?
So kind of similar to what I was just discussed in selecting puppies, right? I mean, we select puppies, we're grading the litter, trying to find the best ones that are correct. Same thing when we judge. So when we judge, we are judging for the most correct dog, the dog that fits the standard the best. Okay. So the first thing that I look for when I judge Kennel Corsos is type. They have to have all the key aspects of correct Kennel Corso breed type. So when an entry comes in the ring, if I see Kennel Corsos, unless I'm judging, that are not correct, they don't have type, then they can never be considered for placement. They have to be a Kennel Corso first and foremost. And it doesn't matter how great their structure is or how great their movement is. They have to be a Kennel Corso first and foremost. So what I'm going to look for are the proportions. Again, is the head proportionally large in comparison to the body? And that's a problem we're seeing nowadays. I'm seeing a lot of really big bodies, really tall Kennel Corsos with a little small head. It's not correct. The head should be noticeably large in comparison to the body. So I want to see a really large head. I want to see a rectangular dog, a dog that's longer in body than it is tall. Okay, I want to see a truly rectangular dog. The breed standard says 10% longer than tall. And from there, if I have the proportions, then I want to go ahead and I want to look. I want to look at the head more carefully and see the breed specific characteristics, which are a muzzle that's 1/3 the length of the head, converging planes of the skull and muzzle. And that's where the top of the skull and the muzzle, top of the skulls actually slope slightly, okay, where we have converging planes of the skull and muzzle. Shouldn't be parallel, should be converging. Should not be extremely converging either, let's say like a boxer or some of your Boston Terriers or French Bulldogs, right? Or Bulldogs, period, are extremely convergent. Shouldn't be like that. It should be slightly convergent, but that's a key aspect of breed type. The other one is a pronounced stop. Stop should be pronounced, but just slightly slope back, not straight up and down. From there, I want to see the rest of the key aspects, which one, of course, is the eye shape. The eye shape, which should be almond to oval, and it should be slightly above the muzzle plane. The eyes should be set wide apart, slightly above the muzzle plane in subfrontal position. The muzzle should be about as wide as it is long, and it should be deeper than it is wide and long. So I want to see all those things to see that I have a correct Kennel Corso, one that has correct type. Okay. And after I see that it has correct type, then as I continue to judge, I want to see that it has sound temperament. I want to see that it's confident, it's not shy or fearful of me, even though it's never met me before. I'm a total stranger. It doesn't have to be waggy and want to be my friend either, but should definitely not have any apprehension or be fearful of me examining it in the show ring. And then, of course, we look at if we have a correct Kennel Corso, one that fits the standard as far as type, then we look at the structure and the soundness, the workability of that dog. Of course, part of judging is moving the dog, seeing how the movement is. And the correct movement for a Kennel Corso is an extended trot. It should move very powerful, but yet effortless. It should have big open triangles in the front and back when it moves. It should move with power and ease. So we want to look at the structure, and of course the structure and the movement go hand in hand. A poorly structured dog can't move well. Okay, so we want to see that we have a good front, good shoulder, good prosternum, a good rear, good upper and lower thigh, feet straight, feet well knuckled up, good structured dog, but type first, and then structure.
Okay. Someone is asking, what's the difference between a dry Cane Corso and a wet Cane Corso? Is there a wet Cane Corso in the first place? We would like to know.
So those terms, wet and dry, pertain mostly to the amount of wrinkle that's on the head and on the neck. Okay. So an example of a breed that's extremely wet would be a Neapolitan Mastiff, right? A lot of wrinkle is part of the type of the Neapolitan Mastiff. And of course, the Neapolitan Mastiff and the Cane Corso are cousins. They derived from similar dogs way back when. So it's important that the Cane Corso be dry, be free of wrinkle. The skin should be very adherent. It should be very smooth, very tight, very taut, with no wrinkle or a very minimum amount of wrinkle. So the Cane Corso should be a very dry dog, not a lot of wrinkle present at all on the head, face, or neck, in comparison to a very wet dog, which is the Neapolitan Mastiff.
Mr. Labena, can you continue, please? Primo. Mr. Primo, pause.
Yes, I'm here. All right, thanks, Jimmy. Another question we also face or we started discuss is, we all believe the Cane Corso came out like genes come out from litters, but is there a way a dog can produce a litter whereby one dog or probably two puppies will be looking more like not Cane Corso, but looking like let's say a Neapolitan? Does it happen that way?
Yes, yes. So, and when you say a Neapolitan Mastiff, you know, the modern Neapolitan Mastiff doesn't resemble what the Neapolitan Mastiffs did 1970s, 1960s, 1950s. I don't know if you're familiar with the prototype for the Neapolitan Mastiff. His name was Julian. That dog looked more like a Cane Corso today than it did a Neapolitan Mastiff. But that said, both breeds, both modern day breeds from Italy, Mastiff type breeds, the Cane Corso and the Neapolitan Mastiff, were derived from similar types of dogs that were found in southern Italy. So to have a Corso that looks more like a Neo at times than a Corso is common. I mean, it definitely happens. So that's nothing, nothing unusual. What's important is to understand that, to realize that, and of course, not to use that type of a dog for reproduction, to stay with what is correct and what is not correct. But to see Corsos produce dogs that look like other breeds is, it's not uncommon either, because as the recovery and what have you of the breed was going on, there were other breed influences that were interjected into the Cane Corso. In Europe, bull mastiffs and boxers were used and mixed some. In the United States, in the early days, Rottweilers were mixed a lot with some of the first Corsos that we had obtained here in the United States. So to occasionally see a litter of Cane Corsos that has a dog that looks like another breed is not uncommon. The important thing to remember is that all breeds are man-made. Okay, all breeds are man-made. There was never a modern day breed that was exactly like it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. Okay, everything is man-made. All dog breeds are man-made. Great examples of Doberman, where it's well documented how that breed was created, right? But to answer the question, to see a Corso or a couple Corso puppies and a Corso litter that look more like a Neapolitan Mastiff, or maybe even something else is not uncommon. No, very possible, of course, and very common.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
There have been several debates about the correct type of bites for Cane Corso. Bite type. Some people believe it should be scissors bite. Some believe it should be underbite on the shot. So, in your own opinion, what do you think is the correct bite for Cane Corso?
So, my opinion is based on the breed standard. And
Okay.
the correct bite for the breed standard is a slight undershot bite. Okay. This has been a debate for a very, very long time. I've heard all the debates that some are better for gripping and holding, that and what have you, things of that nature. I think what's important is that that argument, that debate occurred a very long time ago at the beginning of the recovery of the breed. Specifically, Stefano Gandolfi, Fernando Casalino, Paulo Breber, Flavio Bruno. They were all involved at the formation of the SAC, the original breed club in Italy for the breed that initiated the recovery of the breed, and they had different opinions. And again, they were obtaining rural dogs off of the farmland, and they had different types of dogs. They had dogs with longer muzzles, shorter muzzles, scissor bites, slight undershot bites, and they were debating what direction to take the breed. Paulo Breber, Flavio Bruno, for instance, felt that the breed should have a slightly longer muzzle, a scissor bite, and parallel planes of the skull and muzzle. Stefano Gandolfi, Fernando Casalino felt the opposite, that the examples that they were obtaining with the shorter muzzle, the converging planes, and the undershot bite should be the direction to go in. So they had that battle, and the battle was won, that the direction the breed would go would be the shorter muzzle, the converging planes, and the slight undershot bite. So that said, in America, the first American standard that we had was based on the style of dogs that we had here first. And our standard, our original standard, called for only a scissor bite. So I understand both sides of it, but the bottom line is the correct bite is what the breed standard says is the correct bite. And that is a slight undershot bite. And the reason being, more so than anything else, that is important, is that all of the key breed specific aspects of the Cane Corso, the scissor bite goes hand in hand with those. Okay, so I mean, the slight undershot bite goes hand in hand, fits the muzzle configuration, the slightly converging skull. The breed specific characteristics of the Cane Corso is what we call brachycephalic. Right, there's three categories for head type: dolichocephalic, mesocephalic, and brachycephalic. Extreme brachycephalic breeds are like a breed that would be more brachycephalic would be a boxer. Extreme brachycephalic would be a bulldog. So the Cane Corso is kind of like right in between mesocephalic and brachycephalic. So the brachycephalic characteristics are very slight, but they're still present. Specifically, the shorter, wider muzzle, the converging planes of the skull and muzzle, and the dentition, which is a slight undershot bite. So it wouldn't be as easy to say that the muzzle should be 1/3 the length, it should be really wide, you should have converging planes of the skull and muzzle, but the scissor bite's better, you should have the scissor bite, because those don't go hand in hand, they don't work together, they don't coexist together. Dentition is a byproduct of muzzle configuration. The muzzle configuration is going to dictate what the dentition is when you open that mouth. When I judge, a lot of times, I can look at a Cane Corso who has a longer muzzle or rounding at the tip of the muzzle, and I pretty much already know that I'm going to find a scissor bite before I even open the mouth. Same thing if I see a Cane Corso that has an extremely short muzzle. The nose is tipped back. Okay. Before I open the mouth, I pretty much already know that I'm going to see an extreme undershot bite, too much. So the very slight undershot bite coexists, suits, works best with the other breed-specific characteristics of the Cane Corso head.
So regarding Cane Corsos, where we normally refer to them as blue Corsos or gray Corsos, over time we've realized that we struggle with their skin health, in being that you normally find probably rashes on their skin, loss of hair. What best way can you advise how to cater for a gray or blue Corsos? Thank you.
So the gray or blue, which is the same, the standard of course says gray, is a diluted breed. It's a diluted black. So fortunately, those type of skin issues with the grays isn't a major concern, but it can be a concern. So if you're having an issue breeding dilute to dilute, then you need to use a solid based black dog to help correct those problems. And you will have to do that as many generations as possible. The other thing is, just because you're having skin issues with a gray dog doesn't necessarily mean that's because of the dilute to dilute breeding. There could be other reasons for it. So it might be easy to say I'm having skin issues with the dilutes, but it might not have anything to actually do with the color. There are some breeds, for example, the Weimaraner, that they only come gray, right? Yet there are other breeds that when they have dilute colors, that there are health issues that come with them. I don't think there's a set for sure dilute health issue related with the Cane Corso. But if you are having those problems and you have concerns, then the easiest, simplest thing to do is just to use a black-based dog in your program.
Thank you. Regarding the other colors, being gray and being Formentino and fawn, there's also some discussion saying that the Formentino, people really don't like the Formentino as compared to the fawn, because they believe the Formentino did not come up from a true combination or pairing to produce that. I don't know your thoughts about that too.
So the fawn and the Formentino and the red are all fawns. Okay, the difference between our fawn and our Formentino is the same between our black and our gray. Okay, so a Formentino is a dilute of a black fawn. A fawn, a true fawn, has black mask, black based dog with the fawn colored coat. The Formentino is a gray based dog with the gray mask, gray pigment, and the fawn colored coat. So the Formentino, what we would call that in AKC, because Formentino is a breed specific term, we would call that a blue fawn versus a regular fawn or a black based fawn. So the fawns and Formentinos are the same, with the exception, just like the black and solid gray. The solid gray is just a dilute. The Formentino is a dilute of the fawn. And then of course we have our red, which is still a black based fawn. Our red dogs are a very rich fawn. It looks almost red, but it's not like a Bordeaux where you have the red pigment where the nose is red and what have you. So our reds, our red fawn, the nose and the mask is still black.
Thank you, sir. Now, the next question is about health. Someone is asking, what are the common health issues in Kennel Corso, especially regarding hip dysplasia and ear care?
So fortunately, we don't have a lot of breed-specific health issues. We have one that is very serious. I'm going to save it for the end. So that said, we have the common health issues that you would expect with any larger active working breed. Hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, OCD of the shoulder, torn knees, ACL tears are quite common. So we had the typical health issues that you would find with any large breed. Fortunately, you can do testing for the majority of those. There's no genetic test for the knees as far as the ACL. There is a university here in the United States, I think it was Cornell, that's beginning to try and identify, or they have identified the gene in the Labradors, because Labrador retrievers are really prone to torn knee ligaments, also the ACL ligament. So, but for right now, the Kennel Corso, there's no way you can test the knees. You just have to have your line knowledge of there's been a history of torn knees in those lines. As far as the hips and the elbows, of course, there's X-rays. So you can take X-rays of the hips and elbows and know what they're like. If they're really good, they're really bad, if they're average, and then make decisions on how to use that dog for reproduction. Of course, if you have really bad elbows or really bad hips in the X-ray, you don't ever want to use that dog. If you have an average hip or maybe one or an elbow that's a little bit below average, then you could always, breed what we call, say, breed up. Be sure you breed to a dog that has really good hips and elbows. Never breed two weak dogs together. You have two dogs that the X-rays aren't great, then don't breed them together. Try and improve what you have or breed up. Okay. So those are common issues, that you need to be aware of if you're going to breed, and be sure you don't produce those problems, by having line knowledge of the dogs you're using and by doing the X-rays and the things that you can X-ray. The one breed specific health issue, and we finally have a test for it. It's a simple DNA test where you take a cotton swab the inside of the cheek, send it off to the laboratory, and they tell you if the dog is clear or not. It's called DSRA, dental skeletal retinal abnormality, DSRA. For years, we had the problem in the breed, but nobody knew what it was. It wasn't identified as a disease, let alone a way to test for it. The common symptoms of it were very young puppies would wind up with translucent teeth. The teeth were almost clear looking. Sometimes the teeth would fall out at a very young age, or they would lose all of their teeth before a year old. Other things would be very weak bones. Bones would just shatter and break. So we would see this, but nobody knew what it was, how to identify it, or how to prevent it. But fortunately, in the last year or two, a university has come out with a way to test for DSRA. It's a breed-specific, very, very nasty disease, and I encourage everyone to test for it. And when you do test for it, there's basically three results you'll receive. You'll receive clear, where they're not carrying the gene whatsoever. You'll receive carrier, where the dog is a carrier, but is not affected. And then, of course, the last one is affected. An affected dog, you really don't need the test because the chances are the dog will no longer be alive in any event. Okay, if it is, it's going to be in really bad shape. If it is affected and alive. So you'll have, for your breeding selection, you'll have dogs that are either clear or affected. The important thing is to never breed two affected dogs together. You can still use a dog that's affected or a carrier. I'm sorry, a dog that's a carrier with a dog that's clear, because it takes 2 carriers in order to produce an effective dog. So you have a DSRA result that you have a really great dog, and you have a DSRA result that says he's a carrier. Doesn't have to be eliminated from the program. You just have to be sure that everything you breed him to is tested and it's also not a carrier. As long as it's clear, you'll be fine. Ideally, you want to just breed clear to clear. Okay. But DSRA is very important. It's the only real breed specific health issue that we have, and everyone should be testing for it.
All right, thank you, sir. The question I would like to ask is about DNA. What is the percentage of DNA that constitute a Kennel Corso when it comes to purity test? And what are the percentage that constitute that it is not a Kennel Corso?
That's, again, like I said earlier, all breeds are man-made, and there have been a lot of other breed influences that have been used over the years in recovery and recognition of the Kennel Corso as an official breed. So when you say a DNA profile, it's important to first understand that the Kennel Corso was not recognized as an Italian breed in Italy until 1994, and it wasn't fully recognized in AKC until 2010. You compare that to other breeds that have been recognized, have been breeding true per se for 100 or more years. So it's easier to set a DNA profile on a well-established breed like the Doberman or the Boxer or the Mastiff or something of that nature than it is on the Kennel Corso. The DNA profile that is going to state what a pure per se Kennel Corso is going to be based on the dogs that those samples were collected from. Okay. The bottom line is we can't go back 100 years to the farms in Italy and DNA swab dogs to get some type of baseline. The baseline had to be developed recently, and the breed was developed recently. So therefore, to be honest with you, I don't put a whole lot of weight into the DNA profiling of the Kennel Corso right now because it's too new of a breed. I put more weight into what I see in front of me. Do I see a Kennel Corso that meets what the breed standard says it should be? Are the proportions correct? Is all the breed-specific type characteristics correct? Is the temperament correct? If I see that, that's way more important to me than a DNA profile that might say 75% Kennel Corso, 10% Neapolitan Mastiff, 15% Boxer, if you understand what I'm saying. So I don't put a whole lot of weight on it. And I'm certainly not going to say what I think a DNA profile, what's acceptable and what's not. The most important thing to me, with it being a relatively new breed, although it was a breed based off of ancient dogs, but we weren't able just to grab all those ancient dogs from 100 years ago and have them here today. A lot of things went on in the recovery of the breed. So because of that, what's most important to me is what I see in front of me, way more important. Do I see a correct Kennel Corso or all the characteristics there than what a DNA profile is going to say for the Kennel Corso right now?
Thank you. Mr. Primo Pause.
Yes. Yes, I also wanted to ask, is the fact that you get a puppy from, let's say, a top dog, a dog probably who has won so many champions, and you get probably a puppy from that particular dog at let's say a tender age, does it necessarily mean that you also going to have a top dog because you purchased a dog from that top dog, or some of the offsprings from that dog might actually rather produce that top dog you really looked for before?
So that, obviously that increases your chances. I mean, ideally you want to use the best dogs possible, the most correct examples of the breed. If you're using really correct examples of the breed, whether that has to do with their obtaining titles, championship titles, being a dog that's won a lot, what have you, whatever. The bottom line is you want to use dogs that are as correct of example as possible, and healthy correct examples, right? I mean, the rest of it is not just the conformation. Of course, it has to be a Cane Corso first and foremost, but the conformation, the temperament again, which is mental health, and the physical health, hips, heart, elbows, those things. So when you have all of that, as far as the pairing you're using, then you've increased your odds of producing similar high quality dogs.
Also, can you breed fe-
You cut out. I did not hear the question.
if you have a female
Your line is breaking.
heat, or you're supposed to leave some gap
You're cutting up too bad. I can't.
breeding program.
I didn't understand any of it. You're cutting up too bad.
I was asking
Hello, Mr. Olusegun. You want to ask a question? Okay, any question in the house? If you have any question, please kindly raise up your hands and let's ask questions, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I was asking if you can mate your female after every litter, or in any breeding program, you are supposed to leave some gaps and skip some heats from females.
Correct. There's again, there's no set rule for that. Okay. It's dependent on that female and the circumstances with that litter. Okay. So if you had a really large litter and it took a lot out of that female, then obviously you wouldn't want to breed her back to back next heat cycle. If you had a breeding and it was a relatively small litter, a few puppies, really didn't take anything out of her, a month or so after, the puppies are gone, she looks absolutely normal, then you might make a decision to breed her back to back. Obviously, you would never want to breed back to back to back to back, right? So the key is the female, the health of the female, obviously the age of the female, which plays directly into health, and the circumstances, of the previous litter would be all things that you would want to factor into it. You want to make the best decision, for that female, and of course, the best decision for the female ultimately will be the best decision for that litter also. So it's not something that you typically do a back-to-back breeding, but it's not something that you couldn't do if all the circumstances were warranted to do it.
Okay, if anybody has question in the house, let us ask now. Any question in the house? Is there any question in the house, please? Anybody that wants to ask question, please. Okay. If you have any question, let us ask the question now, please. Anybody, anyone with question? Okay, let me ask this. Just like what you said, you said that Corso are between brachycephalic and mesocephalic breed, but these days we see more of mesocephalic Corso being displayed, and they actually promote that head type, especially in Europe. So what do you have to say about this?
So a Corso, when you say mesocephalic type, in order to be a Corso, it has to have correct type. And correct type is what the breed standard says is correct type. So if there is a dog that's a Corso, say it's registered, numbers, everything, it's a Corso as far as registration paperwork, but it doesn't have correct type for whatever reason. It's more mesocephalic than brachycephalic. The muzzle's longer, doesn't have converging planes, whatever, right? Then in reality, it's not a correct dog. It doesn't fit the breed standard. So people, obviously, if they wish to produce that, they can, but they're producing incorrect dogs. The only dog that can be correct is what the breed standard says is correct.
Thank you, sir. So any other questions, please? Mr. Primo, any question from your
Yes.
side?
There's also a school of thought that there's, let's say in quotes, a different standard from American. We have American Corso standard and probably the FCI being the European also standard. Is this true, or is there any difference between the American standard and the European standard?
Is there differences? Did you say about the coat or differences in general in the standards?
Differences in general, or if there's something like American type of Corso and European standard. There's always been that argument. I don't know if you have much info or if you probably heard people talking about American standard and the European standard, or the FCI or AKCs.
Okay. Yeah, of course I've lived it, you know. I mean, I've lived it for the number of years I've been doing this here in the United States. So the Italian standard, the original Morsani standard, is of course the Italian Kennel Club standard, which when FCI accepted the breed, they based the FCI standard on the original Morsani Italian Kennel Club standard. Those standards are virtually the same, except that the FCI standard is a little bit of a condensed version, a little bit shorter version, but everything that's relevant is the same. So that said, in America, we started receiving some Corsos here. A Neapolitan Mastiff breeder was brought back a couple litters of Corsos. And those Corsos were more like Neapolitan Mastiffs of that time than they were Corsos. And he obtained them off the rural farms, you know, like everybody else did. But these ones were a little bit more parallel planes, scissor bite, longer muzzle, and what have you. Actually, when he first brought him here, he called him Sicilian Brown Cario. which is another name for similar type dogs in Italy. He didn't call them Cane Corso. So a few years later, he changed the name from Sicilian Brancario to Cane Corso. And his name was Mickey Sotilli, by the way, or Michael Sotilli. And he created the first American registry for the breed and the first American standard for the breed. So, and this would have been in the early 1990s. So the original American standard here in the United States called for a dog that had a scissor bite only, called for a dog that had parallel planes of the skull and muzzle. And something else interesting is that the original American standard had an additional color pattern called black and tan, like what you see in Rottweilers and Dobermans, black and tan points. That was because of a lot of Rottweiler was used. He brought back 2 litters from Italy. You can't just breed them together forever. His wife actually was a Rottweiler breeder, and he was a Neapolitan Mastiff breeder. So the original American dogs were a combination of those dogs that were brought back from Italy and some Rottweiler mixing and some Neapolitan Mastiff mixing, and had black and tan as as a listed color. In 2000, we would, of course, by then, myself and others were bringing a lot more Cane Corsos in from Italy. In 2000, the standard would have the black and tan removed from the American standard. And then in 2010, the Cane Corso would go into AKC with full recognition in the working group. And black and tan would actually be made a DQ. It's one of only 5 DQs in the AKC standard. So all that said, the only other difference, other than having black and tan as a DQ, and the American AKC standard, where it was never a problem or an issue or a concern in Italy, so it never had to be made a DQ in that standard. When I say Italy, Italian or FCI standard, again, it's the same. The only other difference is that, again, the original American standard allowed, it didn't allow, it only had a scissor bite dog. And because we had so many scissor bite dogs here in the United States still from those old lines, even though we were importing more and more dogs with undershot bites, the scissor bite has remained in the American standard. In today's AKC standard, it reads that the preferred bite is a slight undershot or level, while the scissor bite is acceptable. So that's the other, really the only other major difference between today's AKC or American standard and the Italian Kennel Club FCI standard, is that the scissor bite is acceptable in the AKC standard, while it is considered a fault in the Italian FCI standard.
Is there any question? If anybody has a question in the house, let us ask now. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, sir. My question is, given the history that you just outlined now, and us as a young, growing club, what would you advise we should do in terms of, since one, we can't really rely so much, rely 100% on DNA. You made mention that we may need to rely more on the phenotypic, appearance of the dog. Would that mean that we need to lay more emphasis on breed assessments, so at least to use that as our foundation going forward?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody that's actively involved needs to study the breed and the breed standard, have a thorough understanding of it, go to as many shows as you can. especially the larger shows like World Show and Euro Show, things of that nature that are relatively accessible for you guys over there, and see correct dogs and learn what is correct, and use that for your selection. And when you learn what is correct, of course, you'll also have to learn what is incorrect. You know, to learn that, don't use incorrect dogs. Use correct dogs in your program. I would not rely on the DNA. It's not reliable, honestly. You know, I would much rather. I really don't care what the DNA says if the dog meets the breed standard, if it's correct. Okay, that's way more important to me than whatever that DNA says. So, absolutely learn the breed standard, learn the difference between correct and incorrect dogs, and use that in order to establish correct dogs in your program.
Okay. Jimmy, as a young breeder, what will you advise how we run our program? Number of dogs to start with, what we should look out for, how do we grow to be a better breeder? What's your best advice for anybody who wants to start a Kennel Corso breeding program? Thank you.
So, first and foremost, as a breeder, you should be what we call a betterment breeder. You should only be doing breedings to better the breed and better what you have as a breeder, your own stock. Okay. Nobody should ever breed just to produce puppies, to sell or what have you. You should always breed first and foremost to better the breed. As far as how many dogs, that's entirely up to what your capabilities are. I can't, I don't know how much time, what you can handle, what have you. So I'm not going to say, whether, 5 dogs is a good program or 15 dogs is a good program. That's entirely up to you. So always breed to better the breed. Now, a lot of things we've talked about here already are the cornerstones or the most important aspect of being a betterment breeder. So that's correct type, breeding correct dogs. And we've already discussed, study the standard, learn the standard, use only correct dogs that have the correct Cane Corso type. And then they have to be functional. So they should have sound structure and movement because they're a working breed. So the structure and the movement should be sound and correct for a working breed. And all this is equally important. I'm not putting one ahead of the other here. And of course, the other one is of course, health. And that includes, once again, temperament, because temperament is mental health. So when you talk temperament and health, for me, it's the same because temperament is mental health. So use only healthy dogs, temperamentally sound dogs, that don't have any hip or elbow problems, dogs that have passed the DSRA test to be sure they don't have that you're not breeding 2 DSRA carriers together and you'll produce DSRA puppies, which is guaranteed puppies that aren't going to live very long after be put down. So meet all 3 of those things: correct type, correct structure and movement, functionality, working ability, and correct health, which includes mental health, temperament. Only use dogs that meet that. Don't ever hesitate to spay or neuter a dog and place it into a home because it's lacking any of that. When I first started breeding, I was able to obtain maybe 1 in 4, maybe 1 in 5 that met all the criteria, and I felt good about using for reproduction. A lot of dogs that I obtained didn't meet 1 or sometimes more of that criteria, and I would spay and neuter to get into a pet home rather than use it for reproduction. It doesn't cost any more or take any more effort to use good dogs as it does bad dogs. The difference is when you use good dogs, you're going to produce good dogs. When you use bad dogs, you're going to produce bad dogs. Everything is genetic. So don't cut any corners. And if you retain, we talked about retaining puppies, picking puppies. If you retain a puppy and the puppy doesn't work out for whatever reason, I know it's disappointing. I know you've got a lot of time in that puppy. But again, if it doesn't meet any of that criteria, if it doesn't turn out to have correct type, if it doesn't turn out to be structurally sound and have working ability, good movement, or if it turns out to have any health issues, temperament issues, any serious health issues, then move on. Don't use it in the program simply because you retained it. You know, never be scared to move on from a dog. That's how you create that's how you're a betterment breeder. You better the breed and you advance yourself. You can't ever go backwards. You just want to keep going forwards. And using a bad dog will put you backwards real quick.
Sorry, my question goes thus. Yes, you made mention of to better the breed. It has different meanings to different people, depending on what the objective is going into breeding. Could you, in your can you expatiate on what you mean by bettering the breed? We just don't want to leave it to assumptions, but we just want to hear your clear view on what you meant by bettering the breed.
So by bettering the breed, again, you don't want to produce anything that isn't correct in conformation, which is the physical appearance, in the soundness, which is the structure, the movement, the working ability, the health, the temperament. All those things you should have very high level in your selection of what dogs to use in your program. So your dogs that you're going to use in your program should always meet that criteria. And that way there, you're always trying to move forward and better the breed. So there's no perfect dog. I mean, everybody's heard that. There's no perfect dog. The written standard is a perfect dog. There's no perfect dog. Nobody's ever produced a perfect dog. Nobody ever will produce a perfect dog. But you always have to strive to be as close to perfect as possible. Okay. So all dogs have some compromises. Okay. But you want to keep the compromises to a minimal. In other words, you would never use a dog that has bad conformation, questionable hips, and a poor temperament. That's horrendous. Okay. So there's going to be some things in every dog that might be strong points and weak points. The important thing is to keep the weak points to an absolute minimum and try and get as close to that perfection as possible. Try and have as great a conformation as possible, as great a health as possible, as great a temperament as possible, as great as structure movement as possible. Always strive for those things. There'll always be a little shortcoming here and there. There's no perfect dog, but never compromise and always try and better the breed by always trying to use only the best examples of the breed possible in all those aspects.
Thank you very much.
So any other questions? Any other question in the house, please? If you have questions, you can ask now. Okay. In the absence of no other questions, Mr. Primo, you can give a closing remark, please. Mr. Primo, pause.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay. I said, in the absence of no other questions, you can give a closing remark.
Okay, thanks so much, Mr. Jimmy Stanchio. On behalf of the Corso Kennel Club of Nigeria and the Corso Club of Ghana, we would like to thank you for your time this evening and also doing your best to answer all our questions. We really appreciate your time. We look forward to having this probably quarterly or half yearly or any other time we call upon you. We will be grateful if you can reach out to us. I know we'll have a lot of questions after the call or after the seminar. It's normal. We will pen them down and also share it with you in our next webinar, or if later we can get your social media handle IDs, we can personally also reach out to you. But foremost, we'd like to thank you for this webinar. It was such impactful, such insightful, and we look forward to having more of this webinar. Thank you so much, Mr. Jimmy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here, and I hope that I was able to help everyone and in some aspect with this breed. Thank you again.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.